Hey Woody, sorry I'm not staring straight at you like this. I'm trying to read off the screen at the same time. I'm Joel, and I've just got done watching your video entitled Why Hate Call of Duty, in which you go on for a few minutes describing how you feel about the sudden flip on the series that the community has given it. You raise a good comparison between ice hockey and the franchise, but what you mostly fail to understand is that video games do not work like sports. While a sport can't change dramatically because it becomes a new sport, video games have the means to do so, and they do. This is where the community or the fans of the series are coming from. They want dramatic changes to how they play the game, new exciting aspects to learn and understand, and perhaps not to the fundamental core of the gameplay, which sounds like a contradiction to what I just said, but the actual game plays near perfectly for a shooter in some regards, mostly because it hits that level of competitive play you seem desperately clamour for, Woody. What do I mean by change? Well, how about a new setting outside of our reality, somewhere much more futuristic, a little bit in the past. I don't mean World Wars, Vietnam, or current warfare. I mean like cowboys, or how about what Quake was doing back in the 90s, that weird sci-fi medieval thing. Call of Duty, where imagination goes into it. You know, not super high. I put this all. This is not in the actual text. I put this in all in inverted commas. Super high realistic gameplay, because it's not. It is the evolution of what Quake became, except it lost all the fun after maybe Call of Duty 5 that Quake still has to this day, even though Quake 4 was the last game. But let's not do what you seem to do at the end of the video in question, because Woody, you don't actually get back on topic until the very last few seconds. You say if changes were brought in, you wouldn't like it anymore. Fine, each their own. What the people who have turned their backs on Call of Duty are saying is that the new stuff needs to be put in, and some systems need to be tweaked or altered or taken out. We're getting the same game we're always getting. We're getting the same game we always get, with very few changes, and even then, with Black Ops 2 on its way, most of the gameplay looks really similar to previous games, with no new way to tackle the multiplayer, which is what I'm assuming from the whole duration of the video you're talking about is just the multiplayer aspect of Call of Duty, because, hey, I don't think you're talking about the campaign, because I don't know if you've ever played the campaign or not. I don't watch your videos. I find you irritating. While other games are adding new features or making massive changes to how it's played to give players a new angle on their old-time favourites. For example, let's go to what I'd classify my Monster Hunt, Call of Duty, which is Monster Hunter. There's always one, at least a year. It's a multiplayer focused, similar to COD, with a single player that takes quite a backseat in some cases to some players, but you sort of need to play these single player. A new Monster Hunt game is released quite often, with constant updates to the previous versions, always getting put onto this, so it's quite confusing to buy a Monster Hunter game, because there's always about 3 different versions by the time it gets released over here, but we usually get the most updated version, like Monster Hunter Tri Ultimate, which is coming out for the Wii U next year. Back to the subject. Why Monster Hunter? If you look at the gameplay videos scattered around on YouTube and the internet, you'll find it is on the top layer, almost exactly the same as it's always been in every previous game. This is where I'm saying. In fact, other than the upcoming Monster Hunter 4 for 3DS next year, I don't think how the game is played has changed at all since the first game since 2005, which is exactly the same as parallel to Call of Duty. So why this? Why? Well, what keeps it fresh and the fans wanting more and bringing new fans in is that it has a change to the other layers, like new environments to explore, tackle and learn the nuances of the new monsters presented to them with each generation, or in other cases, how does a monster behave in a different state? What if I slice off the tail to this big dragon? Is it going to get more pissed off, or is it going to be weaker? It's these changes that keep a game fresh. In general, if you add something new to Call of Duty, like oh hey, now we're in space and everyone floats. Hey, you've got a new game on your hand. I think it's already been done and it didn't actually take off. What was it called? I don't remember. It's on Steam or PC or whatever. You can find it there. I don't think it's online anymore. No one plays it anyway. This is Call of Duty's problem. It hasn't added anything dramatically new since Call of Duty 4's introduction of the multiplayer, the new multiplayer with the leveling and everything like that. Sure, the zombies have been added, but other than them appearing every now and again, every 2 years, it's still the same standard fast-paced modern military, or sometimes a few years back, style of game that has drowned out the first-person shooter market. This is why people don't like Call of Duty. It's filled our medium with what we hold so dear, with companies desperately trying to chase after it, with new takes on the same generic formula that we've tried to stray away from for the last 10 years with World War II games. It happened before. Call of Duty caused it last time when World War II games just plagued shooters. It was bad. It's gotten bland, and in video games, bland just won't do. People who play video games are the most volatile and snappy people on the internet, and if you're giving us nearly the exact same stuff, not you personally, Woody, if you're giving us nearly the exactly same stuff over and over with very little difference, because I mean, if you boil it down, we've been shooting the same M4 rifle at each other for nearly 6 years, then of course you're going to find people holding a grudge against it in some form or another. People want new, and they want to be interested. If video games were like a sport, and each individual game were almost exactly identical to each other in specific genres or categories, we wouldn't be where we are today. But none of this matters anyway, Woody, because you invalidated your argument by comparing a multiplayer aspect of Call of Duty to Limbo or Half-Life, two games that are prominently single-player and vastly different, but do what the public want, and the opposite of what you want offers something new. This is all it boils down to. Again, the core game can stay the same. The shooting, the running, the fast-paced 60 frames a second action that will probably look out of date in a few years. Real out of date, it's already looking out of date. They need new. It's how it's presented to the player is what needs changing. What's given to the player needs changing, and it needs changing fast.